As soon as I got into it, I knew I wanted to do it all the time.
It's like therapy, but better. Any issues, anything you have going on in your mind, you can get out there, it just clears it.
It's just provided a space for me to be myself and not to worry about anyone else. I don't know why everyone doesn't do it, to be honest. It's wonderful.
I started winter surfing. Actually, the first time I started surfing was here at Higgins Beach almost 25 years ago now. And it was actually the first time I really got into it was in the winter. Some friends of mine were doing it. It looked pretty fun, and they had extra equipment, so it was pretty easy to get out there as long as you could deal with the freezing cold temperatures and everything. But and so I've been pretty much surfing nonstop since then, since the late 90s. I think I originally first started surfing in like November of that first year, so it wasn't quite winter yet, but it got me enough hooked that I was fine going out in the middle of a snowstorm that coming winter, and then on till now. Maine actually has some premium quality waves. I mean, it's harder to get good swell here, but when it is good, it's really great. I've surfed all over, well, not all over the world, but Central America and California and Florida and places like that. And quite honestly, I love the surf here best just for the vibe of it all.
Maine is interesting because the coast is really dynamic. So it's, a lot of in and out. And surfing is a funny sport because there's so many variables. So you have the tide, the wind direction, where the waves are coming from, how big the waves are. So all of those factors kind of determine where you'd want to go. You pretty much want a wetsuit year round, but then in the summer you can get down to a 3 millimeter. They call it like 3.2, so it's more thickness in your core and then less on your limbs. And then in the winter, you really need the gear. So, I think these are 5 millimeter mittens. My boots are 7 millimeter. It's funny, in the springtime, it can be a beautiful day, like in mid-May, air's 80, but the water's still like 45 degrees. And so it's kind of funny, people come out in like a summer wetsuit and they're out for like 10 minutes and they're like, oh, I'm freezing, I gotta get back out. Surfing is really cool because it's always different, so you really have to pay attention. So, you can't be like, oh, I'm worried about this thing because, I gotta pay attention to what I'm doing right now. If you're stressed out, you focus on what's right in front of you. It helps you like step back. So it actually changes how your eyes work, but it also helps you see like bigger picture. This little thing stressing me out, maybe not the biggest deal.
For the whole time I'm out there, I'm out of my head. And I'm someone who deals with a lot of anxiety in their life. And it's just like part of being me. But even if I'm having the most anxious day ever, or something's going on in my life that's like, I don't know how to deal with it, as soon as I step into the water, all that leaves. All that just like goes out of my mind, and I can reset, I can exist in that state of just like being okay, sort of transcending a little bit. I've lived in Maine my whole life, and I've always loved the ocean. I didn't realize how much I loved the ocean until I moved away for a year a little while back. As soon as I turned 16 and I could drive, I started going like every day. Small, big, clean, messy, whatever. I'd just be in the water. And I got the bug pretty quick. Like when you're out there, it's like another feeling that's really awesome. And that's super nice. I really dig that.
Surfing for me is both sport and, getting active, but it's also a bit meditative. You're out there, you're communing with nature. Especially tonight, there weren't many waves, but it was a really beautiful sunset, and it was really quiet, and just like these small appealing waves. It's just nice to be out there and quiet, and you hear the birds and see the fish. And yeah, that's a nice thing about surfing. You get a little bit of all of that at one time. This is a hydrofoil surfboard. Just recently I got into this. This is just a different discipline of surfing, predominantly for smaller waves. You can get up and get going, and you hover above the surface while you're surfing, but I'm also into surfing on traditional surfboards as well. Started surfing maybe I was 7 or 8, so not quite 40 years yet. Yeah, I'm new to surfing on the hydrofoil, so I wear this chest protector because you're up elevated off of the water and you can fall down and fall onto the board with a lot more impact than you would just surfing. So this takes some of the beating out of that. And I wear a helmet all the time when I surf. It's not frequent, but here at Higgins it gets quite crowded sometimes. I'm also a kiteboarder, and I got into wearing a helmet with that because there's a lot of wind blowing, your board gets picked up. So once I started wearing a helmet for that, I started wearing it with surfing and hydrofoiling and everything.
Being a beginner, I can't give you all the specifics on it, but the thickness of your wetsuit matters quite a bit as far as how warm you'll be. So in the summertime, I would wear a thinner wetsuit or sometimes nothing, depending on if the water's warm. And in the winter here, you really need a thicker suit. So I have a 4.5 plus. That's how thick the millimeters are on the wetsuit. A lot of people will wear a 6.5 in the deep winter. Not having the right gear can make it quite dangerous. If you have the right gear, it's actually quite enjoyable. So with my setup, I'm actually comfortable for about an hour out there. On a nicer day like today, it could go longer when the sun's out and you're warm. Surfing mentally, that's probably a huge aspect of it. I like the physical component of being active and paddling out, catching a wave, it's so fun. But afterwards, I love the zen of the water and how I feel after the exercise. You have to be very focused in the moment because each wave is slightly different. When you're surfing with other people out there, it's a fun social activity as well. It definitely is a big component of mental happiness. Surfing is awesome. It's a very zen activity. It's nice to be out in the water, an activity as well as enjoying the beauty of the beach.